everyone, and welcome to Science Buffs, the ultimate podcast for STEM enthusiasts. Thank you all so much for joining. My name is Abby,
And I'm Sam.
and we are going to get into a fun topic today that I will teach Sam about. But first, we like to talk about life updates. Now, I'm not sure a ton has happened with either of us since last week's recording, but Sam, let us in on what happened this last week. What's new with you?
Nothing's really new with me. I did homework, so that's important. My class is almost
Great.
done.
What
So
class are you in now?
I'm in business statistics. And
Okay.
I would like to do a mini pod episode on the outcome of my statistic project because my project is statistically analyzing the percentage of women in STEM by state. So I'm like
Interesting.
analyzing if there's factors that play into the percentage of women in STEM in each state. So I
Interesting.
figured
Do
that would
you
be
do
like
it
fun.
other countries at all?
I haven't done other countries. They the requirements for the project was you had to have 50 minimum data points, and I was like, there's 50 states.
I bet a lot of people are doing states.
Yeah, I know my other friend is doing states, but I would
That's
like to
funny
do other countries for sure.
because I've heard
Um,
some interesting statistics on like the countries that I don't know. Well, we can talk about that during our mini episode
Yeah, exactly.
about,
So in two
diving
weeks,
in.
my project will be considered complete, and I'll do like a little outbrief of it.
Okay, I'm excited for that.
Yes. What's new
That'll
with
be
you?
good. Well, we were talking about life updates before we started recording, and there's not a ton that happened with me other than I got like a little bit sick over the weekend, but we're on the mend. No one else got sick. It was mild. But I have fully transitioned to making all of my own bread products. Like I think I've talked about this a little bit on the podcast where I have made my own like buns and stuff and breads and things. But I am now like 100%. I haven't bought anything at the store bread wise for like 3 weeks,
That's impressive.
which is a dream come true.
Is it cheaper to make your own bread?
Yeah, it's way cheaper. Well, so for things like pasta, because I've made all my own pasta, it's like you save $2, but you save
Yeah,
a lot of ingredients, like the ingredients. It's literally just egg, flour, and water.
right.
Um, but I made naan the other week and I needed 6 pieces of naan, and the naan that I usually get at the store is like $3.19 for a pack of two. And I needed 6 pieces of bread. So I saved myself like $9.
That's pretty good. That's pretty
Yeah.
good.
And like flour's cheap. So that's
I've
good.
been I've been making my own hummus.
Oh, how was
Yeah,
that?
it's so easy. And like,
Really?
hummus, like Sabras hummus or something,
Yeah.
it's like $6 or $7 for a tiny thin container. So you just buy a can of chickpeas, you throw it in the blender, you add some garlic and salt,
And it
and
tastes like really
it
good.
tastes so good and it makes a ton.
Okay, I really want to do that. My dad just made some and he said it was amazing. I didn't
It's
get to
so
try
easy.
any. And nice. He bought like not even the canned ones. Like, or did you do you soak them first?
I just bought the canned chickpeas, but
Okay,
he
yeah,
probably
because he
like
bought just the bagged ones, and he's like, you
that's even
just
cheaper,
soak
I'm
it
sure.
overnight, and then you just do it, and that sounds nice.
That's
Maybe
interesting.
I'll
I
try
bet
that. I'll
that's even
report
cheaper.
back. I'll try that this week.
Yeah, try it. I want to know how you like it.
Look at it. We're both homesteaders.
Now I'm just broke.
It's great. Like, so I did the math, and it doesn't seem like that much, but I'm trying to do this for like as many foods as I can, where I saved like probably I think it was like $18 or something by making my own breads. And I still have
That's
some
amazing.
left over, so I'm like freezing it for like next week. And I feel like that adds up like $18 a week.
It really
So
does.
I mean it's a little bit time consuming, but a lot of them it's not actually that much like uh labor. You're doing something and then waiting a couple hours, doing something, waiting a couple hours. So it's not like it'll take like 4 hours to make, but you're doing like 5 minutes of work in
Yeah.
actuality.
If you save $18 a week and you eat bread every week, it's $936 a year.
See, that's some good savings right
That's
there.
pretty good.
Yeah. So this is a finance podcast now.
Yeah. Well, we both listen to a lot of finance podcasts.
Oh
So
yeah. If anyone has not listened to Smart Money Happy Hour, it's our both of our new obsessions. It's like part of the Dave Ramsey network. and it's great. They drink a cocktail, they talk about finances, and it's like two of my favorite personalities,
They're so
and I
funny.
love them. So, anyway, we have a little debate for you all as the audience that Sam can recap because we got a little
Yeah.
heated.
Yeah. So we're going to put this in the poll. So today, Abby asked me, do you want a podcast tonight? And I said yes, with
Or
an
no, I
upside
was
down
like, yeah, you good to podcast at 8? Because we had
And I
previously
said,
decided this.
yeah, previously decided. I said yes with an upside down smiley face. I was trying to be all cute. Yay, I'm excited. Upside down smiley face. Can't wait. Abby responded back and was like, wait, we don't have to podcast like if you don't want to. And I
I was
was
like,
like,
if you have too
why
much
do you think
school or
that?
something, then it's okay.
So apparently Abby thinks that the upside down smiley face means that you're
Oh,
irritated or it's like or annoyed.
oh, you cut out for a second.
But
Hold on, say that sentence one more time.
I said, apparently, Abby thinks that the upside down smiley face means like you're irritated or annoyed or unhappy, which
It
is
does.
funny because I initially did really disagree with you on that one. But I think back on how I have used it in a sassy manner.
Yeah, and
Like,
one of your friends described it best when she said, I think it means like you're dead inside. Or like the perfect use of it would be like, let's say you didn't want to record. Let's say we just were sick and like we did not want to record at all. And I'm like, ugh, do you want to podcast tonight? And you'd be like, sure, upside down smiley face, like, God, kill me, but I have to do this.
so yeah, so I did a poll on my personal Instagram page and I got lots of opinions. I was shocked. This is a very controversial emoji. I've done polls before on my Instagram and I get like no responses. This one got like
It was
40
popping off.
responses. Yeah. And so Abby won. It was probably like 1/3 to 2/3, and Abby
Yeah,
wins that it's taken sassily, like as a sassy manner. But I will say that I think the older
I was just gonna
millennials
say this.
think that it's just oh cute and flirty.
Oh, I was gonna say the
Tends to be
opposite.
like the younger people think it's sassy.
Oh, really? I was gonna say
That's
the opposite. My theory was that older millennials, our generation, used it originally to mean dead inside. Then the younger Gen Zers took it and like reclaimed it and went to dating apps to use it flirty, and it's like permeated through dating apps.
yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting theory. I'd have to do my statistical analysis
We'll
on
have to
it.
do a statistical analysis, yes,
Yeah.
because I don't know. We're like, what's your age? When you reply to this poll, also reply with your age and where you learned this.
That's my whole project.
Yeah, that'd
But
be
yeah,
great. 50
it's a
data
very
points, you're almost
controversial.
there.
Yeah, it's a very controversial emoji. Who
Yeah,
knew?
anyway, we'll leave a poll, so leave in weigh in.
What?
Glitched for a second. Anyway, weigh in and I will be glad to see you when I win.
Yeah, you're already winning. You won this poll.
I'm glad we'll see. The results could change according to our demographics. So,
That's true.
anyway, are you ready to get into our topic?
I'm ready. I'm
All
excited.
right, let's do it. So, here are your 3 clues. I'm curious to see when you get this. Okay,
Oh no.
today we are covering clue number 1. Today we are covering an international tourist attraction.
Pompeii.
No, interesting guess though.
That was the first one that came to my mind.
Okay.
Um, okay.
Any more guesses? It's kind of
No.
vague. Okay. It's in Italy.
Oh, oh, the Colosseum.
No.
Oh, dang. I was thinking Hillary Duff, Lizzie McGuire.
Yeah, I ran these by Jason and he guessed that for the second clue as well. So
The
good
Colosseum would
guess.
be a good engineering one to do.
It would. Okay, third clue. There was a major structural slash architectural flaw.
The Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm
Today we are
excited.
going over the Leaning Tower of Pisa,
That's
mostly
so
because I
cool.
really want to go to Italy. Have you been?
I've been to Italy, but I've been to Venice and Bari, Italy, those two.
Okay, okay. Right.
Yeah, that would be so cool to go see.
Yeah, I really want to see it, especially after this, because it's quite interesting. There's been like multiple attempts, which we'll go over, to make it better, and they were poorly planned, and it's made it worse until now it is stabilized. But let's go over the Leaning Tower of Pisa. So some will be history, some will be the actual
Oh, I'm
engineering architecture
so
stuff.
excited. So
And
excited about
so
this one.
here we go. Okay, so the Leaning Tower of Pisa is a medieval structure in Pisa, Italy, obviously. It's famous for, do you know why, first of all, it's leaning?
No, I've never known, and I've never asked, but I should have.
Okay, so it is leaning because the foundation settled as they were building it. So they didn't like, it was built in
Uh,
like the 1100s. So presumably they didn't have the knowledge to try to fix the foundation, or they put it in the wrong spot. Basically, they put it in pretty soft soil. So the foundation settled, and it caused it to lean 5.5 degrees, which from the top is like 15 feet. It's really not that tall. So
it's crazy.
it's leaning 15 feet, or it was, from perpendicular in the late 20th century. So, once they had this and they actually realized, and we'll go over this, but they realized that it was still not only leaning, but continuing to fall. So it was unstable for a long time. And so there was extensive work that was done to straighten the tower, and its lean was ultimately reduced to less than 4 degrees. But it's
Wow.
kind of like, what I didn't realize was I thought it was completely stable right now, but it's actually kind of always continuously moving and changing. So we will go over that. It's super interesting, but we'll talk about the construction. So the bell tower, um, the construction on the bell tower began in 1173 as the third and final
So,
structure.
is
Yes.
that what it is? It's a bell tower?
Yes, it is
I
a
don't
bell
even think I
tower.
ever knew that.
So let's talk about, I should back up. So why
Okay.
was it built? The Tower of Pisa is the church's bell tower. So the city of Pisa was at the beginning of a simple but important Italian seaport, this says. Um, so as the city grew, they had to put religious buildings in. And so this was built as part of like an extension of the city, and therefore religious buildings. So it says the fame and power grew gradually over the years as the people of Pisa were involved in various military conflicts and trade agreements. The Pisans attacked the city of Palermo on the island of Sicily in 1063. That attack was a success, and then the conquerors returned to Pisa with all this treasure, and then they wanted to like show off the city and show how important the city was. And so they decided to build this great cathedral, like a cathedral complex, which is called the Field of Miracles. And the plan included a cathedral, a baptistry, and a bell tower. So that bell tower is the Tower of Pisa.
What? Okay,
And they
I
also
had no
included a
idea.
cemetery. Yes, so that's why it was built. Um, but then let's see. Okay, so construction began in 1173, and it was designed to stand 180 feet, sorry, 185 feet high. It was constructed of white marble, so definitely heavy. 3 of its 8 stories were completed when the settling of the building's foundations made it obvious that it was leaning.
Wow.
So it was only supposed to be 8 stories, and it only is 8 stories. But they notice, like, they're done with the 3rd story, and they're like, is that leaning a little bit? So at that time, this is also really interesting. So it was like falling, basically. Um, at that time, a war broke out between different Italian city states, and construction was halted for, it says, almost a century. It's like for almost 100 years, it just didn't do anything, and it was sitting at 3 stories high. Well, that is the only reason that it didn't actually fall and crumble completely, because that century allowed it to, like, while it wasn't very tall, to allow the soil to shift a little bit and compact a little bit more, so that when they did complete the tower, it didn't shift as much as it would have.
Wow.
So it was very close to collapsing, just like in the 1100s, um, if there was no war to pause the construction. So a man named Giovanni di Simone, or de Simone, the engineer in charge when construction resumed, sought to compensate for the lean by making the new stories slightly taller on the short side. So this isn't like
What?
necessarily maybe the best um, solution. This is kind of seen as attempt number one. There's going to be other ones to actually try to fix it once it's completed. But once they realized that it was leaning, they're like, well, we have 5 more stories to build. Let's just, it's leaning this way. Let's just make this shorter side a little bit taller.
That's wild.
So it said that the extra masonry actually caused the structure to sink further. So that was counterproductive because you're just putting more weight on the sinking side,
Right.
which is not great. So not the best architect, I would say. It says the project was plagued with interruptions as engineers sought solutions to the leaning problem, but the tower was ultimately topped out in the 14th century. So there were twin spiral staircases that line the tower's interior. There's just short of 300 steps leading from the ground to the bell chamber. Okay, so it says that over the next 4 centuries, so from like the 1300s to the 1500s. Wow, that was not good. It said 4 centuries. From the 1300s to the 1700s. Oh, you're frozen. Okay.
Oh
The
no.
tower's 7 bells were installed. The largest weighed more than 3,600 kilograms, so like 8,000 pounds. So not only was it leaning and they were doing it like with marble and then putting more weight on the long side, then they're like, let's put all the bells in there as it's leaning, and that's like 8,000 more pounds. So the bells had to be then silenced because it was believed that the movement of the bells could probably worsen the tower's lean.
Oh my goodness.
So it's not going great for any part of this construction at this time. So, okay, so we'll talk about this article goes like very just surface level into the fixing things, but I want to pull up something else later. So we're just going to skip that. But let's talk about who actually built it, who's responsible for all of this. Okay, so um let's see. The first name that comes up with the history of the tower is Donna Berta de Bernardo. So that was a local widow who donated 60 silver coins to the Opera Companilis. I'm not going to say this. Petrarum Sanctumary. Okay, so that money financed the purchase or part of the purchase of the stones that were used for the foundation of the tower. That was in 1172. So there was like a philanthropist who wanted to see this tower built, and they bought the stones. So the owner, it says, as the freestanding bell tower of the nearby cathedral, the Leaning Tower was commissioned by the Catholic Church, which financed and rightfully owned all of the buildings in the Square of Miracles. The works
Square
in
of
the
Mirror.
yes, the Square of
Love it.
Miracles. So the works in the square started in 1064 with the construction of the cathedral. So like I was saying, when they went and won their battle and they came back, that's when the construction started on the whole Square of Miracles, but it took a while to start construction on the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
Got it.
So let's see. It says it started in 1064 with the construction of the cathedral under the guidance and wish of the Bishop Guido. He died in 1076, about 1 century before the beginning of the construction works for the tower. So it's actually not known who commissioned the tower, but they think it was already planned during the rest of the start of the construction of the Square of Miracles.
Wow.
But it's like slow moving. It's like a
Well,
hundred
yeah,
years.
I would imagine because you said it's made out of marble, right?
Yes.
I'd imagine that was probably really hard to source at the time and also was super expensive. I could only imagine.
Yeah, it was definitely slow, but it's like, you come back from this battle and you're like, yeah, Pisa is amazing. Like, let's show them. And then it takes like 400 years to complete the Square of Miracles. It's like, I think the excitement might have died by then, but
You're like,
that's
yeah.
all right. It's like, remember that one like war battle 350 years ago? This is for that.
This is for you, great
This is
great
for
grandpa.
you. Yeah, so that's pretty crazy. But the
That's so morbid to
architect,
think about.
I know, The original architect is unknown, technically. There are no original documents left. There's no signature on the building. We don't know who the architect is. There's three names that stand out as like possibilities that would have been around at the time. There are names, I'm really not good at pronouncing Italian names, but Diotisalvi was a famous architect in Pisa at the time. He was building the baptistry in the Square of Miracles, so it's like kind of reasonable that he would plan this.
Yeah.
Bonanno Pisano was a famous sculptor in Pisa. That's spelled B-O.
Bonano? That sounds like
Bonanno.
oh my god.
So he was a famous sculptor. He left several art pieces in the Square of Miracles, and then Gerard
Bonano.
and then Gerardo
Bonano.
di Gerardo is another artist in Pisa. So it's one of them that we can blame for this. Okay, so it was 5 years into construction when the tower began to lean, and then it was stopped for 100 years, as we mentioned. So
That's kind of like me. I feel like when I start a project and it just immediately doesn't go my way, I'm like, I'll get back to it. And then I leave everything just out in there. And then
this
maybe I'll come back to it one
this
day.
reminds me, I just bought a paint by numbers and it's been sitting like in its box, like ready to go on my counter for like 3 weeks. Like
That's
one day
hilarious.
I'll get back to that.
And then I also like how it seems like when they got back to it, instead of being like, maybe we should figure out what's going on and like start over, they're just like, we'll just finish it how it is and kind of just
They're like, why don't we just
like
like make one side bigger? So,
I mean, it kind of sounds like how I fix things, like at home with duct tape and.
oh yeah. No, this sounds like something we do. Sounds like our senior project.
Yeah.
Okay, so the builders, Giovanni di Simone, was the engineer in charge of resuming the construction of the tower in 1272. So it says he received many critiques for not straightening the tower at the time. So he brought the construction from 3 tiers to 7 tiers. And it says at the time, given the tools and technology available, this was a great success. It said, keep in mind that nobody else has ever built a leaning tower without the use of steel.
Wait, I just had a thought. Does
Yes.
this kind of feel like reverse Jenga
Yeah, like keep building it higher.
and crooked
And crooked, yeah, till it
until,
falls.
yeah.
Yeah, so in 1284, works were stopped again. They resumed around 1350 by Tommaso Pisano, and the tower was declared completed in 1372. So
Do you
even when
think
they were like,
Bonanno? Do you think Bonanno and Tommaso?
yeah, they're probably friends. But like even when they were then like, okay, we're back on, we're gonna finish the tower. It took 22 years
What?
to from the third start to the final finish.
And it doesn't say why.
I think it's just because it's marble and they didn't have steel and it's like
Heavy.
really just hard to get these materials up.
Nobody wanted to be the last to go to have the leaning power be on tower be
No,
on the ground.
no. So then it says, this like gives them a lot of credit. I know we're like kind of laughing at them, but Giovanni di Simone and Tommaso Pisano had the skills, focus, bravery to complete an undertaking that many thought to be foolish. They successfully finished the monument without making it topple, and the quality of their work was so good that the tower survived gravity with no assistance for over 600 years, which is technically true, but they were saying that like I think it was still falling at the time. So okay, let's talk about some rescue attempts or like some correction attempts that they did, because those are really interesting. So before the last like successful attempt to stabilize the tower, which was completed in 2001, before that there were
What?
two other
2001?
2001 there was a major intervention that stabilized it for a long time. It's
Wow.
now open to tourists again. So it's good. But before that, and we'll talk about that one too, but before that, there were two other projects to try to fix it. So the first to reopen the works was Alessandro. Well, oh wait, I missed some stuff. So it says in recent times, it went through 3 major renovations. Oh yeah, never mind. I'll cut that out. Okay, so the first to reopen the works was Alessandro della Gherardesca. Gherardesca. That was in 1838. So he was an established architect, and he thought that Pisa would have benefited from exposing the base of the tower. I don't exactly know why he thought this, but he thought that the problem was that the base was not exposed. So at the time, the base was buried mostly underground, and a lot of it, there was like this intricate artwork, but it wasn't visible. So he gave the order to dig out the base of the ground. And I mean, it seems obvious to me. I guess maybe I wouldn't have known this at the time, but like he dug it out and it increased the inclination, like because there's less
Yeah.
keeping it stable. I guess he maybe thought it would go the other way or something. I don't.
Oh, kind of like like digging it out on one side, but one side's still heavier because
Yeah,
it
no,
had
he just
a
like
lot of the
I
sides, right?
from what I understand, he just undid like everything around the base. So I don't know in what thought process was like, yes, this will correct it, but it
Interesting.
increased the inclination. So the second, this is interesting because I actually don't know a lot about Mussolini, which I want to learn about, but the second attempt was like a direct order from Mussolini. Which you know what
Really?
Miss Mussolini's first name was?
Uh, I feel like I knew it at one point, but I don't remember.
Benito.
Benito. I think I maybe did
Benito
know that.
Mussolini. I had no idea. So in 1934, he ordered for the refurbishment effort. So it says, in his opinion, the tower was an embarrassment for Italy, and its unfortunate inclination had to be corrected to restore the intended vertical position. So he just ordered to straighten it. And so people tried. Like he's not an architect. There's like no way that he knew. He's just like, that's an embarrassing. Fix it. And people were
Yeah.
like, okay. So it says that 361 holes were drilled into the foundations and 90 cubic meters of concrete were poured into the holes. So this one makes more sense to me, where I think like it could possibly work. But it said that the result was an overwhelming increase in the inclination of the monument. He gave up, and it said Mussolini gave up trying to be an architect and brought Italy to war a few years later.
Wow.
So that did not work. So
Interesting.
Italians, it says, then learned from that and increased the bureaucratic complexity of managing these monuments. And they said today that it takes like a dictator cannot just say like fix that monument. You have to have at least 13 people to sign off as part of this commission to do anything like that to
Like a
these monuments.
historic board or historic
Yeah,
society.
it's like a yeah, something to preserve the monuments. So it takes the approval of the Italian government and the church. So it's a lot harder now than just a crazy dictator to be like, do something, drill some holes. So
Yeah.
that was that. Okay, so in the end, in 1990 to 2001, so this was like a 10-year refurbishment restoration
Wow.
project. And so in the year 1350, their lean was reported to be 1.4 degrees. It grew over time until it reached uh, over 5 degrees in 1993. So that's when things were like, okay, it's still falling. Like it kept increasing over time. So they realized that the soil is leaning or the tower is leaning because the soil underneath the foundation is not strong enough to carry the weight. So what they did was interesting. It was like what you were mentioning, basically digging out the foundation on one side, on the taller side. So cables were first attached around the third story. They were tensioned to stabilize the tower during drilling. So this would be like really nerve wracking. So they're like having these huge cables connected to try to stabilize the tower so that nothing happens and it doesn't increase its lean any further.
Yeah.
So the tower is tilting to the south. They had weights, like counterweights basically on the north side. A drill was inserted at a shallow angle on the north side to extract small volumes of soil on the north side of the tower, like all around the north side. And then they kind of just like let it settle for a long time, and the cavity that they had dug out filled under the pressure of the tower, and it slowly reversed its tilt.
Wow.
So it's just like kind of as a waiting game. There's no like just hoisting it back. They just dug and just kind of waited for it to settle back under the weight, and it started correcting itself. So that was very interesting. And then what I thought was crazy was I found this article from news.artnet.com that talked about like how they basically release a report every year, um or every decade maybe, like at a certain cadence, that kind of tracks the tilt of the tower. So it says results from the Leaning Tower of Pisa's annual check. Oh, it is by year. Annual checkup are in. As of November 30th, this was written in 2022. Um, After a stabilization project began in 1990, it reduced it. Okay, so the tower has straightened itself out by an additional 1.6 inches since 2001.
Wow.
It oscillates 0.02 inches over the course of each year, though the latest results show that it's actually continuing to straighten.
Interesting. So I have a question, and this is
Yes.
coming from my business side, I think, like my business thinking, but
Hmm.
do you think that they wouldn't want to correct it 100% of the way because they'll lose
Yeah,
tourists?
tourist attraction, probably. I would
Yeah.
think that too,
Because
because
would
it
you
did
want to go see
say
the Tower of Pisa? Would you still want to go if it wasn't leaning anymore?
no. Well, I guess maybe the only thing would be like this used to be leaning. Now it's self-corrected. But like,
But you can't get
no.
that picture where it looks like you're pushing it up.
I know that'd be great. Just like, oh.
This is a
So
side note. Have you seen the video of the guy that runs over and high fives everyone that's doing that picture?
no, that's funny though.
Because
What's
everyone's just
that?
standing there with their hand up.
That's funny.
So I'm like,
So,
would they want to correct it all the way? That was my main thinking.
um, no, but I think it's kind of out of their hands now because of the like they've dug it, it's still continuing to settle. So it says that the first actual self correction was recorded in 2018. And it says that some Italian officials are taking that optimism even further, claiming the tower could stand all the way straight on its own one day.
Yeah, what year? If it's moving an inch per year.
It's gonna be like, yeah, 5,000 or something.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
so I don't think
that
that's
wouldn't be an
a,
inch per year, I guess. That's less than an inch per year.
this was like 2 inches per decade. So it's slow going, and I doubt it'll, well, here's the thing. I doubt that it'll perfectly be straight because they would have had to dig it perfectly. Like it's gonna lean
Yeah.
some way. So I don't have much hope that it'll stand perfectly straight, but that would be crazy.
It's associated with a cathedral, right?
Yes,
Is
it's
the
a bell
cathedral
tower for a
also
cathedral.
built of marble? And I wonder why it didn't have cleaning problems too, or like
Yeah,
foundation.
I think it was just because it's taller.
Oh,
Like a cathedral has like such a wide base. I would assume. Well, it might be leaning, but like I think it's less obvious. You
maybe
know,
all of our buildings are slightly crooked and we just don't notice.
maybe. Well, I did want to talk about because we are both recent like home builders slash moving into new homes, and this is a very common problem, especially it sounds like in Colorado. Um, is foundation settling like this. So there were a bunch of tests and like soil, tests where they send it off to a lab to test the compression like rate or whatever of the soil. So in places like Colorado where it's arid, the soil can compress and expand with the drought and then wet. So I wanted to talk a little bit about just like home foundation settlings and how that works because it's kind of interesting that it's like we're still having the same problem this many years later. It's been,
I got a crack in my foundation about 1 month, or sorry, 1 year after my foundation
yeah,
was poured.
yeah, that is wild. And it's apparently because, the settlement is caused by the soil beneath your home moving and shifting with the different conditions and the different, amount of moisture.
Yeah.
So it says as the house settles, it can cause many foundation issues, like you mentioned, like big foundation cracks, water intrusion, jammed windows, like you can't close doors, or basement wall cracks, things like that. So there's a bunch of warning signs. they're pretty obvious, like big cracks in your house is like a sign that your foundation is settling. Um, but a big thing that they say is a really good, big help in this is one is like the soil compression. So that's a big part of home building is like they go around and compress all the soil as much as they can because then it, reduces all the porous space between each of the particles and things. So when it gets wet, there's less motion for the water to get through or the moisture to get through. So that's one thing. And then building drainage away from your house is super important. So you're not just your foundation's not sitting on just wet soil as much as
Right.
possible. But I just thought it was interesting that like I heard all these things when we were building the house, and then I was like, oh, the Leaning Tower of Pisa 900 years ago had the exact same problem, and they should have
We're still
compressed that
having that
soil.
problem. Yeah.
Yes, so that's just a little part on that, but that is pretty much all for this week's episode. And
That
any
was
other
a great
questions?
episode. I loved it.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week. Leave a result or leave your opinion in the poll, and we will talk to you next week. So, bye everyone.
Bye, everyone.